Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm officeblokedaz.
I'm officeblokedaz.
officeblokedaz Sports Edition.
Back at it.
Back at it.
Back basketball.
At it. Getting all into the big stuff now. So if you've got a sport you want us to watch and react to, let us know in the comments below. Any videos you've got as well, if you want us to have a look at them.
Yeah.
Some we're not going to do them all. Obviously, if you give us a million requests, we won't get through them. But give us the best ones you've got, and we'll have a look at them and see if you can make the cut, as we say. This is second round draft picks that became superstars.
You see this quite often, to be fair.
We were talking about it the other day, didn't we, on the draft, when we did the draft, about how many people are going to be starters and how many people are going to become first team, sort of like big name players.
Yeah.
And, we're keeping our eye on Wembanyama. Is that his name? Wembanyama?
Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Wembanyama.
Yeah. So let's see second round draft picks that became superstars. Anyone spring to mind, apart from Jokic?
I can't really think, no. But I always see recent years of drafts, and I see the people that were in the drafts, and I see certain people that got drafted before certain other people, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's hard to say what people develop into, but let's have a look at this. Second round draft picks that became superstars.
The probability of drafting an all-star with the first pick is 65%. The chances of drafting an NBA All-Star in the second round are close to zero, because in the last 40 years, only 26 players drafted in the second round made at least one All-Star team. But that's still 26 times a GM hits a home run and finds a diamond in the rough. These are the second-round draft picks who became NBA superstars.
I was like Dennis the Menace. I was a prankster, and I was a jokester.
Gilbert Arenas is an immature prankster, and he's been that way his whole life. In college, he partied all the time, he carried guns, he drove around campus blasting sounds from porno movies on max volume. But he was also the best player on a team that went to the NCAA Finals, and Arenas believed he would be a top 10 pick. By sheer talent alone, Gilbert was supposed to be a top 5 pick in a draft that also had Pau Gasol, Tony Parker, Zach Randolph, and Joe Johnson. But what Arenas had in terms of talent, he had more than double in immaturity. See, during that draft's combine, Gil refused to do an 8-minute cardio drill to measure his heart rate. And for the stupidest possible reason. The guy didn't want to mess up his brand new sneakers on the treadmill. And when the NBA representatives asked him what his main goal was in the NBA, Gil simply answered that he wanted to be a pimp. They gave him another chance to answer that same question and say something smarter, but Gil doubled down. I want to be an international pimp. Totally oblivious that his stupidity and his childish behavior might throw off some teams, Gil still believed that he was going to be selected in the top 10 and become a millionaire. And so, before the draft, Arenas bought a custom-built Escalade with suede leather on the inside, 5 TVs, jewelry, clothes.
I don't get this. You're striving to be, one of the best superstars in any sport.
Yeah.
Right? You've got everything that you bring to the table, and you're right at the final hurdle, and you still want to be a goofball.
Yeah. I don't think he was any different his whole
career.
Yeah. Like his college career and stuff like that,
Yeah.
when it doesn't matter as much.
But you've got to change going into. You've got to be professional in the NBA.
Yeah, big time.
You've got kids looking up to you. All that kind of stuff.
He obviously just thought he was like, I'm going to get picked top 10.
No matter what.
Look at me, yeah.
Well, let's carry on.
And he partied like a superstar. But much to his surprise, he wasn't selected as high as he hoped. Arenas got selected with the second pick of the second round and 31st overall.
With the 31st pick in the 2001 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select Gilbert Arenas from the University of Arizona.
His rookie salary was only $400,000 after taxes, which, don't get me wrong, is a nice chunk of money, but it's not the millions Gil envisioned. Turns out that Arenas had actually spent his entire rookie salary before the draft, and so he was left with $500 a month to live. And because of that, he couldn't even afford gas money, so Gil had to sleep in the arena. But it turns out that that's ultimately the best thing that could have happened to him. Because since he was already in the arena and he had no money to spend, Arenas worked on his game all the time. And in his second season, he won the Most Improved Player award and became one of the best scorers of his generation until injuries took their toll. Still, his career scoring average is over 20 points per game, which ranks among the 75 best of all time. And yeah, while it's a little weird that someone as talented as Gilbert dropped to the second round, it was completely obvious why it happened to Isaiah Thomas.
I was the last pick.
Oh, that was gonna say, yeah. When you said to me what name comes to mind, I was thinking of Isaiah Thomas. He got last picks, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
The
last.
It's funny how Arenas was named after where he was sleeping at.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
That's 60th pick.
Isaiah grew up to only be 5'9", and he was always the smallest guy on every court. His family actually tried to convince him to quit basketball and at least have a plan B. But for Isaiah, playing basketball was always going to be plan A, and there was no plan B. And finally, after a successful 3-year college career, Thomas's lifelong NBA dream finally came true. In the 2011 NBA Draft, he was selected 60th overall with the final pick of the draft.
2011 NBA Draft, the Sacramento Kings select Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, being picked last isn't very flattering, but that didn't matter to Thomas, as long as he was in the league. But it's one thing to get drafted, and a whole other thing to stay in the NBA, as many second-round picks fizzle out of the league after only 2 seasons. However, basketball-crazed Thomas was too talented and too relentless. By the end of his rookie year, he was starting for the Kings, and in his 3rd season, he was averaging 20 points per game. After a short stint in Phoenix, he was traded to Boston, where he won the hearts of the fans and put his name in the record books. In the 2016 season, he averaged 22 points per game and became an All-Star. In 2017, he averaged 29 points per game, which was the 3rd best mark in the entire league. He made 2nd team All-NBA, becoming the shortest player with an All-NBA selection, the shortest with multiple All-Star selections, and the shortest player to record a triple-double. Then, in the 2017 playoffs against the Wizards, he scored 53 points on his late sister's birthday, just a few weeks after she passed away. Unfortunately for IT, during the same playoffs, he would severely injure his hip, which derailed his mobility, and he was never the same player again. Still, he remains the best little guy to ever play, and he squeezed every bit of juice out of his 5'9" body, which is, ironically, smaller than this next Hall of Famer, who is best known by his nickname Tiny. At 6'1" and just 150 pounds, Nate Archibald was one of the lightest players in NBA history. He was drafted with the 19th overall pick in the 1970 NBA Draft, which qualifies him for this list because there were only 17 teams in the NBA back then. And even though he came in a stacked draft that produced 6 Hall of Famers, Nate quickly proved that he should have been picked much higher. Thanks to his featherweight, Nate was extremely quick, shifty, and unstoppable when driving to the basket. In his 2nd NBA season, Archibald averaged 28 points per game, and in his 3rd year, he averaged 34 points and 11 assists, both of which were best marks in the NBA. To this day, Tiny is the only player in NBA history to lead the league in points and assists in the same season. Archibald averaged 25 points and 8 assists per game in his first 7 seasons before he injured his Achilles. Still, even after injury, he was productive, making 3 All-Star teams and winning a title with the Celtics. But just when the Celtics' title runs in the 80s were coming to an end, a new trend in the NBA emerged. NBA GMs finally started.
Imagine being 6'1" and being called tiny.
I know, yeah. Being one of the lightest players in the NBA.
Yeah.
Started realizing that European players weren't half bad, especially after Team USA failed to win gold at the '88 Olympics and the 1990 World Cup. But don't get us wrong, the NBA was still biased towards Europeans, and that's why players like Drazen Petrovic and Toni Kukoc were late draft picks, despite dominating European basketball for years. Petrovic is still the 4th most accurate three-point shooter ever, and Kukoc was best known as a member of the Chicago Bulls during their 2nd three-peat. Kukoc was one of the first big men that could dribble, pass, and shoot. He was a hybrid between Dirk Nowitzki and Manu Ginobili. If he didn't play alongside Jordan and Pippen, Tony could have been an all-star and easily averaged over 20 points per game. Another great player from that Bulls team that was a late draft pick was Steve Kerr, the 50th pick in the 1988 NBA Draft. But it's understandable why Steve dropped so low. Kerr was a skinny, unathletic white guy who only had one real skill, shooting. But the problem was that the NBA didn't value three-pointers in the 80s as much as it does today. But Kerr turned out to be the most accurate three-point shooter in NBA history.
Steve Kerr came into this season at 48% career.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the Warriors coach.
Golden
State Warriors.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
In three-point shooting.
And was an invaluable role player for 5 championship teams with unforgettable clutch shots.
Here's Jordan. Did not have the shot.
And funny championship speeches.
When we called timeout, Phil told Michael, he said, Michael, I want you to take the last shot. And Michael said, you know, Phil, I don't feel real comfortable in these situations. Maybe we ought to go in another direction. Why don't we go to Steve?
The Bulls general manager Jerry Krause once said that it's the whole organization that wins championships, and not just their superstars. Jordan and Pippen hated Krause, but it's undeniable that he was correct. The most pivotal of all the Bulls additions turned out to be Dennis Rodman, who, despite his craziness, was a hell of a player. Rodman had one of the most unusual paths to the NBA. He was homeless for 2 years after high school and worked as a janitor at an airport to support himself. In his last attempt at basketball, he attended a junior college in Oklahoma, where he averaged 25 points and 15 rebounds, and that was enough to get invited to a pre-draft camp for NBA.
Didn't he marry himself or something?
No, he married.
I thought he dressed up as a.
No, he was the bride. He dressed up as the bride when he married not Jennifer. I can't remember her name now. Blonde-haired girl. She was the ex-Playboy playmate.
No.
Can't remember her name, but he's not. He's been in North Korea and all that. He's not.
Yeah, no, I know that.
NBA prospects, where he caught the attention of the Pistons scouts and changed his life forever. Not many believed that a 25-year-old Rodman, who only played in junior college, was worth spending a pick on, but the Pistons did, and so they snagged him with the 27th pick of the 1986 draft. And Rodman would become an integral part of the bad boy era and win 2 NBA championships with Detroit, and then 3 more as a member of the Chicago Bulls.
And do you know which player scored the most points in the 80s? Many people would probably guess Jordan, Bird, Magic, or Dominique Wilkins, but they'd all be wrong. It's actually Alex English,
and he was selected with the 6th pick of the second round in 1976. Honorable mention goes to Dennis Johnson, another Hall of Famer selected in the same draft 6 spots after English. But unlike Johnson, who quickly found his footing, English spent the first 3 seasons riding the bench. It wasn't until he got traded to Denver that he got his first real opportunity, which he used to the fullest. Not only did English average 25 points per game in the entire decade, but he was also Mr. Reliable, missing only 7 games for the Nuggets during his 11-year tenure in Colorado. English led the NBA in scoring once. He was an 8-time All-Star, retired with over 25,000 points, and is the lowest draft pick out of all the players who scored 25,000 or more. But scoring isn't everything, and you can get into the Hall of Fame by averaging a triple single.
He had a triple single.
We're talking about Draymond Green. Draymond was an exceptional college player. As a sophomore, Green was the conference 6th man of the year. And as a senior, he carried the Spartans to the #1 seed in the conference as their leading scorer, rebounder, and three-point shooter. NCAA coaches selected Draymond as Collegiate Player of the Year. He made the Big Ten All-Defensive Team, and he was a consensus first-team All-American. With that kind of resume, Draymond believed he was going to be a lottery pick, but instead, he dropped all the way to the 35th pick, where he was finally selected by the Warriors.
With the 35th pick in the 2012 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select Draymond Green.
In hindsight, Draymond was a top 5 player in a draft that also included Anthony Davis, Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, and Chris Middleton.
You know, Middleton also deserves an honorable mention because he was selected 4 spots after Draymond with the 39th overall pick. But during that time, there were a lot of questions about Green, and very few people could have predicted his success. In 2012, NBA teams still played with 2 traditional big men, and Draymond was a 6'7" power forward. Along with his lack of height, he was also a bit overweight, and being short and chubby.
Yeah, said before as well, I was when he was in college, he was leading three-point shooter as well. I wouldn't have thought that.
No, I didn't think he was that tall, 6'7".
Well, I mean, when you never think they're always that tall, because they're always up against people a lot taller.
Yeah.
That was never a good combination in the NBA. Green checked off a few of the common biases when evaluating talent. He was a tweener with no clear position. He was already 22 years old, and some scouts believed he maxed out. And he was a jack of all trades, but master of none. Of course, they were all wrong, and Draymond improved significantly. He made 7 all-defensive NBA teams and became a Defensive Player of the Year, along with 4 All-Star nods and 4 championships. To this day, he still holds a grudge about his draft position, and he knows the name of every single player drafted ahead of him.
11 was Myers Leonard. 12 was Jeremy Lamb.
And just like Draymond, this late second-round pick also became a Defensive Player of the Year. It was Marc Gasol, who first came to America as a 16-year-old after his brother Pau got drafted as the 3rd overall pick in the 2001 NBA draft.
The Atlanta Hawks select Pau Gasol from FC Barcelona, Spain.
The Gasol family moved to Memphis, and young Mark didn't know the language at all, and it was hard for him to get acclimated to America. But what he did like was food, especially American fast food restaurants. Nicknamed Big Burrito, younger Gasol...
Remember when we were asking about if they go to the draft or not, even if they're from Europe?
Yeah, there's the answer.
There's your answer, yeah. Who said draft from FC Barcelona.
Gasol ballooned up and didn't receive any substantial NCAA offers. However, with some help from Pau, who lobbied for him, Mark returned to Spain in 2003 to extend his basketball career. 4 years later, and dozens of pounds less, Mark entered his name in the draft, but he was still considered too slow and too unfit, which is why he fell all the way to the Lakers with the 48th pick. And fate would have it that Mark got traded for his brother and ended up in Memphis while Pau moved to LA. And that brotherly swap was one of the best win-win trades in NBA history. The Lakers won 2 titles with Pau, while Mark ended up with 3 All-Star selections, a Defensive Player of the Year award, and a championship with the Raptors.
But a few years prior to the Gasols arriving in America, another Spanish-speaking basketball magician quietly joined the NBA, and nobody knew how to pronounce his name.
Manu Ginobili. Who did we just pick? I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be great. He's this. He's okay, Pop. Whatever. Yeah, okay.
It wouldn't take too long before he took the league by storm and made Charles Barkley scream his name with absolute delight.
Ginobili!
Manu was the 57th pick in the talent-rich '99 NBA draft.
Antonio Spurs select Emmanuel Ginobili from Argentina,
which gave us 9 All-Stars, 8 of which were selected in the first round. But the one who got picked near the end turned out to be the best of them all, and the only one who got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Ginobili became a legend in San Antonio, winning 4 titles and firmly establishing himself as one of the best foreign players to ever play in the NBA. But the player who still has a chance to be the best foreigner in the NBA was so neglected during his draft selection that nobody even saw him get drafted. By the time Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum was saying his name, some ESPN producer decided it was time to skip to commercials, probably thinking that nobody cared about the 41st pick anyway. While the world watched a Taco Bell commercial, the Denver Nuggets selected the best passing big man in NBA history. During that time, Nikola Jokic was still quite chubby and sound asleep in Serbia. Not even he could foresee that he would be the best player in his draft class and win multiple MVPs. And that's not too shabby for a guy less important than Taco Bell.
That's mad, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
41st pick and he's got like 2 MVPs.
I know. It's you're always going to get that. You're always going to get ones that slip through the net where someone whoever's looking think, no, he's not good enough.
Yeah.
You know, he's not good enough for our first pick or our first round pick. So they look at him and think, yeah, okay, we'll give it a shot, take him on it on the second round, deep in as well.
The drafts is literally just like gambles, really, aren't they, on players?
Yeah, but they are watched, aren't they? Players are watched. It's only like our scouting systems that we have.
Yeah.
You know, in our sports over here.
But you could be like great throughout the academy and then step up for the first team and not be with it at all.
That step up from any level of sport to the top level. There's a massive gap.
Yeah.
Second tier down to the top level, there's a massive gap in between.
Yeah.
Humongous in all sports.
And only some players can actually live up to it, can't they?
Some players can do it. Some players are ready at an early age.
Yeah.
LeBron was ready. Kobe. They were ready at early ages to sort of like step up to that level of eliteness.
Yeah.
But I think Jokic is doing it this season.
An interesting one would be like seeing how many like first round picks, first pick in the NBA, like who's just the worst and who's not really done anything with it.
There'll be loads.
What, who's picked first?
What was the percentage you said before about people who don't make it? 2 or 3 years, they said, didn't they? 2 years in the NBA and they're done.
Yeah.
In the second round
round.
Most second round picks. It goes to show how aggressive it is.
But if there's more people coming through the draft every year, you're going to have to drop people who's not good enough.
More people coming through. There's also more people maintaining their spots and playing at elite level. But yeah, interesting video that. Enjoyed that. Hope you guys enjoyed it too. Don't forget to subscribe, please. It does help us grow.
It does.
And we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.